Hi everyone, this is Darren from Fast Track Property. I did this video a while back, but after reviewing it, I realized that it has still a lot of applications and very relevant in today's market. So here it goes for you to take a look, for you to plan your real estate cycle or property investment better in Singapore, right? And to really help me out, do hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Hi everyone, what's up? This is Darren from Fast Track Property, where I transform your life and improve your destination. Today, I'd like to share with you a little bit of how I personally felt, my own perspective and opinion over the past 15 years in this industry, meeting individuals, families, alright. What are the top 10 mistakes they actually had and committed to over the past 15 years as a Singaporean or as a PR, buying a Singapore property, alright? The first one that I can come to mind, that I felt was really one of the most major mistakes I felt, is actually telling me, Darren, I'm buying a home and not an investment property, alright? Like I have been telling a lot of you, back in the day, our parents, the value of the purchases are so much smaller, and today, if you had that mindset, you're going to have your funds stuck. Why? How many of us wanted to buy a property today and living in there for the next 10 to 15 years and realize that we can only sell now at a fraction of the price that we have purchased for the past few years, isn't it? And because of that, you realize that when you're going to move on to the next property, you're kind of stuck because all your funds are stuck over there. And I have a customer where I met just 2 weeks ago, and I felt really sad when I met them because 6 years ago in 2014, they bought a property in Ang Mo Kio, and they bought it at $342,000. And you can never guess how much I sold that property for, because they wanted to upgrade to a bigger property, because they wanted to give another room because they have a son and a daughter, right? So they have 2 separate rooms. But the shocking thing was that over the past 6 years, at an area in Ang Mo Kio, we could only sell the property of $250,000. So guys, imagine this is a $110,000 loss in a span of 6 years, right? How many of us have sacrificed so much of our time working for others, bringing that dough home, but because of these emotional reasons, you buy something and you realize that the equity in the property just fell over the next 6 years, okay? So I think that is a better way for us to actually buy a property, and there's some things that we can actually think about before putting that hard-earned money into that asset or liability, okay? And for number 2 mistake that I personally feel that it is, I want to buy a property near my parents or near my children, okay? Well, these reasons are not bad, because a lot of us buy such things because we do need to have logistical support or family member support, because we are working, we need to bring our children to care of your in-laws' place or our parents' place, and then we kind of pick them up in the evening and bring them back home, right? So these are very real things that we actually face on a day-to-day basis. I myself have that, so I have my whole family staying together with me because I do need that support, and I know how important it is to you. But bear in mind that you got to ask yourself, in exchange of this support, is it worth buying this property in the next 5 to 10 years and knowing that you are not going to get the same amount back in future, okay? Is it something that you can accept in losing $100,000 to $150,000 in the next 10 years? If it's something that you can accept, right, I think you shouldn't accept, right? You should ask yourself, are there any options out there available that you could actually enjoy the same type of comfort and support without risking that hard-earned money into that property, all right? I'm going to now give you some solutions later on in this video, or what are the possible solutions you could actually consider while now buying that property to fulfill that need. Number 3, I want space, right? The newer condominiums today and the newer HDBs today are also much smaller, and we all had that dream of having the huge walk-in wardrobe, or even you wanted to have for your children a nice bed, and beside the bed a nice study area so they can study. Everyone wants that, isn't it? All right. But the question is that, if you now were to exchange that and tell yourself, I'm going to buy that older property because it is so much larger, for example, does it make sense to you, all right? Is there any other option that you can walk around this? Why? Because many of us have purchased properties in the past. If you do some research already for the past few years, a lot of us have bought properties, even a freehold property and apartment property in the past 5 years, and you realize that today you cannot even sell that property, isn't it? For the same price, okay? I have a customer bought a property at Waterfront Waves. It's a 2-bedroom condominium at $1 million, 1.0 something million, and that was maybe for 4 years ago. And you realize that today they're unable to sell the same price. The price of that property has actually came down. And the reason for buying was because it is a much bigger 2-bedroom. The per square feet makes so much sense compared to the other properties surrounding, right? But it doesn't mean today, because the whole metrics and the whole valuation of properties, the whole way to sell property today and for a buyer to buy a property today is very different from 10, 15 years ago. All right. The fourth mistake I felt a lot of us are committing right now is that we buy and invest in the same place. Only one property. All right. We buy and invest in one property. All right. I actually will offer you a second opinion, and that would be my perspective would be rent where you stay and buy where you invest. Rent where you stay, buy where you invest. Now, why does this really make sense to you? For me, it really makes sense because when you were to calculate the cost of holding on to a property, right, you realize that it comes to X amount of dollars. And if you rent a property outside that fulfill your immediate needs, for example, number one, if you wanted to be near your parents because of that support that you really need, rent a place over there, near them, right? Sign on a 2 or 3 year lease, doesn't matter. The period that you would need to live in there for that particular moment. And if you, for example, your children have to move school and you have to be mobile again, move again to another place and rent wherever that you felt you need. If you need a bigger space, for example, you have had the idea of that bedroom for your children, the big dining area, the big patio unit, right? Then rent a patio unit in a condominium. Okay, do it yourself, it makes more sense, and put that money that you have exchanged every single day, guys. We spend how many hours working in a day? Some of us spend, like me, working 16 hours a day, right? Some of us work just 8 hours a day, but basically on average, you spend about 60 hours working every single week, right? If that being the case, does it make sense to put that money into a property that is not going to make you money in return? All right, it continues us eating the money from you. And if you continue doing that, you realize that you only have one property, you are the one and the only person, your household is the one that is paying for it. Never in your lifetime will you be able to enjoy OPM. OPM will be other people's money. Okay, so when you stay in a place, you rent a place, okay, I know a lot of us are going to be like, no, Darren, this is crazy. I'm not going to rent a place, I don't like it. I feel very silly. It's not my home. Come on. I think a lot of us got to be a bit more uncomfortable because I rented a place and the experience is not really as bad as what you think it is. There's so many options out there, all right? And put that money that you've exchanged your family time for, your sacrifices every single day, moving on to a property that will give you that capital gain, okay? And the fifth mistake, I only want to move once, all right? So this is something I heard a lot, and I realized there's some reasons why if you own an HDB today and you tell yourself, oh, I only want to move once, I want to move from one place to another, and a lot of such requirements restrict the options of your purchase the next time. And I realized a lot of us have that immediate issue, and that's why they purchase properties at very high prices and very wrong entry prices. For example, buying condominiums already nearing to TOP because guess what? I don't have to rent out, I don't have to wait so long. I can move in the next 3 to 6 months, isn't it? Without knowing, meeting the agents over there, getting that great deal in your mind because they'll be telling you that, hey guys, you're going to move in immediately. You don't have to wait so long, you don't have to spend renting outside, isn't it? But you buy at a place whereby, because it's nearing to TOP, you have bought a unit at a high price, allowing the earlier owner to exit with a profit, and you carrying now this baby of debt onto your life, all right, furthering, working harder for it, paying it off, and realize next time you have a longer time to break even, or in the worst case, stuck with this property because you are losing a lot of money. Number 6, a lot of us buy properties without planning our next property. Okay, does it make sense to you? A lot of us buy our first property without knowing what we're going to buy in the second property. I will offer you a change of perspective. Before you buy your first property, discuss how are you going to own your second property, and then the first property will come into what makes more sense to you. Okay? Because if you were to do that and just buy one property without planning for a second property, you realize that in future your options are going to be very restricted. You're going to be stuck in one property, and you're going to just tell yourself this: buying multiple properties in Singapore and owning multiple properties are only for the rich, and you are not rich, therefore I just accept my fate, I'll just own one property. And this is really not a fact. Many families I've assisted has moved on to multiple properties while having my method. Second mistake would be, for HDB dollars, buying and taking a HDB loan? Well, many of you have the issue with having a 5% down because you just started work. That is perfectly fine. You do not have to take the bank loan immediately, but you have to know one thing is that the bank loans presently for the past almost 10 years now, I have given you very competitive rates, right? Because they have a lot of competition with other banks, right? And for HDB, your loan is always at 2.6%. All right. So if you are there in the beginning and you have taken out that loan, took on that grant, that's perfectly fine because you do not have that 5% cash to take on a bank loan. That's perfectly fine too. But do be aware and also know that after taking on the loan of HDB, in the coming months, you can approach the bank and refinance your loan with the bank without coming out the additional 5% cash. And I realize that a lot of us are just very comfortable. You do not want to find that knowledge. You don't want to do that and you continue paying 2.6% for the past 5 to 10 years. And it doesn't make sense, all right, when many people are enjoying now as low as 1.75 for their repricing or refinancing options. And another reason why they took a HDB loan was because it's really, okay, to me, I think it's really real, but they were telling me this, Darren, HDB, if I am short a couple of months, if I am in a crisis, they won't take back my house. All right, so I take on a HDB loan. I don't mind paying the higher interest because if I'm ever in a crisis, they won't take away my house. But for the banks, they will take my house immediately. All right, I want to tell you this is a myth. HDB do still take away your house if you do not pay them promptly. All right, they do meet you. Yes, they do give you a bit more of grace time, but so does the banks unless it is owed for many months. But my question to you is this: that please, why do you have to plan for such a crisis? It doesn't make sense because the real thing is that when you're working hard today, delayed gratification, right? Do not go for that long-awaited trip. Do not buy that brand new car. Do not buy that crazy electronics that you always wanted to buy. A brand new fridge. Can you put that cash into the house and accumulate your CPF? All right. And moving on, this is the whole reason for the next mistake. Mistake number 8: they just go all in, isn't it? When you buy a property, you realize that the CPF just covers every single month, they are okay, then they go and buy that 5-room flat or the executive or even for the condominium for that matter. I buy this property as I calculate that my CPF every month is able to cover the mortgage, or I had to top up a little bit, that is fine, I'm very happy with it, it's something that I'm able to sleep every single night, right? But the question is this, here comes the issue, we do not know when we can lose our job, we do not know when medical issues hit our lives or one of us is down, isn't it? But the mortgage, you have to know that you have signed on a mortgage for the next 25 years, 30 years, it has to be paid back. It's very unlike our parents' time whereby their loans are only 5 to 10 years, right? Buying a 30K, 40K or even a 800K property at a time, they get paid off very fast. And at the time, if you look through your research, you realize that in the 1980s, 1990s, CPF was giving them as high as 6% return on their CPF earnings, or OA account, right? So right now, I will actually ask you to think a bit deeper. Do go ahead and start to pay your mortgage in cash and start to accumulate that money in your CPF for your crisis, and do not, you can plan for a rainy day, but I think be a bit more smarter in that planning, okay? Mistake number 9, renovations, okay? Renovations are something that you are not going to get a lot out when you sell your property, especially for HDB dwellers, right? And a lot of us renovate something to our own style, you realize? And a lot of my own style, what I mean is that everything is designed, for example, a black color, is the first time I saw it, a black color aircon, a very nice bar counter rooted onto the ground, all right? It's something that is really your taste. I understand this is your house, but if you wanted to give this as an incentive or attribute that you wanted to demand a little bit more in terms of your selling price in future, you got to do it something in a way that is modernized and really accepted in future by most of the buyers out there, and not just that small 1% that is able to accept your color scheme or the way that you have renovated your house, all right? And also at the same time, please do not spend so much money on renovations. It's really a waste of money, okay? I have people buying a 5-room flat in Tampines, and it was scary because when I met them, they want to sell their place and they spend on a 5-room flat, 121 square meters, 160K on renovations. I really do not understand. I can't see the 160K, and I told them this money is going to be lost because they stayed in the place for how long? For only 6 years. Spending 160K for a 6 years property, you're not going to get a single cent back, all right? Maybe you do get really a small fraction of it. So at this stage you realize that it's true that when you purchase your property, a lot of emotions are going to come in. You and your spouse are going to talk about it. It's always something you dream about, maybe as a girl or as a boy, or when you're a teenager, something that grand that you wanted. But I think you'll be smart a bit on the way you spend your money. Okay, right? And now, lastly, for mistake number 10, you didn't plan your exit in the next 5 or 10 years. What do I mean by that? Many of us today are selling properties, and I'm telling buyers where I represent them. If today you buy a property, for example, a corridor property in a HDB estate, you realize that corridor properties are going to be extinct. Extinct meaning to say that many buyers are not going to like it anymore because there's so many options now for a corner unit to give you the maximum privacy. Yet, in the old days, you really do have that 4-room flat, 3-room flat, or even some 5-room flat that are along the corridor, and it restricts a lot of people's privacy, alright? So, but you might buy that because why? It's cheap, you like the space, you go on in, and you realize that 5 years later, 10 years later, this particular asset class is not going to be desirable again to the public. So, this is one of the biggest purchase you're going to have in your life, I guess. All right, a part of you, those that of you can afford your Ferraris and all, right? But this is going to be one of the biggest class assets you're going to buy. A lot of money going to be put inside there. You're going to pay every single month, and I feel that you got to really know what you're doing, plan for it, and make sure that you do not get stuck in future and is able to be easily disposed of in future, or you'll be very sad because imagine yourself selling your property and you realize no one's giving you offers and it's in the market for the past 3, 6 to even a year. Alright, with that, I'll speak to you soon.